for not getting out. By July, I'm going to be with you.
Still cold here.
Is it?
Still married. Married.
So you're going to be a great grandmother?
Twice.
You've been home with her twice?
Keep it back level.
Who's twice?
Keep it back level. Push it forward.
Forward?
Thank you, ladies.
Well, there's two.
Oh, Amanda, and then who's the other one? Oh,
Everybody's got it.
yep. That's one.
Unless someone.
But I can't even get one. I remember which one.
There you go. I'm Rabbi Cashel. So sorry. Can I give you a your ribbon for immediate ones? You're going to put it right here. We're going to rip it in a little bit. You want to hook them here? You want me to do it? I'll do it. And up. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, it's all right. But sure, I'll take it. There we are, sir. Then in just a second, we're going to rip it, okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, the immediate family members will be seated in the front. And please gather around as close or as far as you feel comfortable. Thank you.
Right over here when you're ready.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Hey everybody, come on in if you feel comfortable. And we can fill in some space over here as well. And there are still a few seats. We shouldn't let them go unused. So if you'd like to take a seat, please feel free to do so. Good morning. My name is Rabbi Eliana Cashel, and we are here to celebrate a very long and well-lived life. That doesn't make our morning any less sad or any less hurtful, but my goodness, what a life Blanche Speisman, has lived. And we are here with this great big family with all of these friends as a testament to who she was and the life that she lived. And so her son and her brother both have a ribbon on them at the moment. This is one of our oldest mourning traditions, where it says in our Torah, whenever someone passes away in our Torah, they rip their clothing. It's a way to show that we're not really of this world when we're mourning. We don't really care about how we look or material things, that we are a little bit broken. But of course, a little bit broken, not completely. We tear it a little bit to say that while part of us is with Blanche as she has passed away, that we are here to still live and to remember her as we live. And so, we're going to repeat, you'll repeat the blessing after me, and then we'll tear the ribbon, okay? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan ha'emet. We praise you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, judge of truth. So you'll take the bottom and just tear up a little bit. And if we could help Joe do it as well, yes. Thank you, Alma. Should go if there's tension. If not, I can get you a different one. There you go. Perfect. This morning we're going to join together in some psalms and some poems. We'll take some moments for silent prayer and then hear about this beautiful life that all of you knew, and then we'll do our memorial prayers. And so we begin with the comforting words of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You can join me if you know it. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the words of Psalm 121, written at a time of mourning and a time of sadness. Sinai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai osei shamayim va'aretz. Al yitain lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. And finally, a poem by Alvin Fine about life's journey. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey. A going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. We take a few moments now of silent prayer, thinking about how Blanche's life has intersected with ours, how her journey, her path has collided with ours. What has she taught us? What have we learned from her? What about how she loved each of you has changed the way in which you've lived? We take a few moments for silent prayer. Say shalom bimromav, Ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. In just 2 days, Jews across the world will gather together with family and friends around Seder tables. They will tell our people's story from Egypt to the Promised Land, and they will declare, "Let all who are hungry come and eat." Most importantly, though, they will enjoy time with one another. They will see generations of family around a table and celebrate simply being together. I do not know if Blanche Speisman was a Passover enthusiast, but I do know that if she could be anywhere in the world, it would be sitting around a table with her multi-generational family, hearing about their lives and basking in their love, joy, and respect for one another. Or it's a canasta table, but I'm pretty sure it's the first. Blanche Speisman was born in Washington, D.C. on January 8, 1926, to Oscar and Cecilia Gildenhorn. Along with her brother, Joe Gildenhorn, Blanche was raised in a loving home, a home in which, at different times in her life, her parents became her best friends. Blanche went to Woodrow Wilson High School and, I'm sure to no one's surprise here, was a socialite at an early age. Whether they were from Woodrow Wilson or Camp Saginaw, where she would spend her summers, a tradition she passed down to her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, when Blanche made a friend, she tended to keep them for life. Actually, some of her friendships lasted over 70 years, a testament to her love and loyalty. Blanche's greatest relationship, though, was the one she shared with Howard Speisman. Howard and Blanche were set up on a blind date by Howard's aunt. Howard was stationed here in D.C. for the Navy, and his aunt was friendly with Blanche's parents. The rest, they say, is history, but actually the rest is sitting and standing right in front of me. This blind date was the beginning of this big, beautiful family. Blanche and Howard were married on October 20th, 1946. Blanche was only 20, Howard 26. 2 years later, Ian was born, then Dennis, then Rabbi, and by 1951, the Speismans became known as Blanche, Howard, and the Boys, a family identity they held on to for almost 40 years. Blanche was a homemaker. Dinner was on the table every night at 6 p.m. She had a set meal for every day, which shocks me. She was part of the PTA and made sandwiches for meetings. As I think Ian said, oh, she was just super. After they were married, Howard took over the family liquor store. While Blanche's main domain was their home, her afternoons would be spent at the store stocking, helping customers, or simply sitting there and knitting. When Blanche was not taking care of her boys, she was socializing and playing. Wherever she lived, whether it was Mass Ave in D.C., 7420 North Park in Friendship Heights, or her home or independent living in Florida, Blanche made friends wherever she went. And then she played mahjong with them, or canasta, or bridge. She innately gathered people, made them feel comfortable, and then held on to them as sincere and forever friends. When Howard passed in 1984, life drastically changed for Blanche. Her partner was gone, and I'm sure that sadness stayed with her. However, she did not let her mourning define her. Instead, she figured out what she wanted her life to look like in this new chapter. She wanted it to look like travel. Howard did not like to travel, and so Blanche had a new opportunity. She got her first passport and took off. Took off to Israel, Europe, numerous cruises, one that even stopped in Switzerland so that she could see where her brother lived while he was an ambassador there. But it turned out he was in America at the time. There was a slight miscommunication. Luckily, they have since upped their communication and spoke weekly these past few years, along with Joe's wife, Alma. She cherished these phone calls and knew that she could always depend on Joe. This chapter of Blanche's life also brought a renewed relationship with her father. While they were always close, the two now found themselves in similar stations in life, both widowed, both discovering their life anew. Blanche and Oscar spent 10 years as each other's closest people. They lived near each other, both here in D.C. and down in Florida, saw each other almost daily, and depended on each other. A unique and beautiful friendship for a father and a daughter, specifically so late in life. Close and unique relationships defined and continue to define the Speisman family, mainly from Blanche's lead. If you asked Blanche about her daughters-in-law, she would reply, "I don't have daughters-in-law, I have daughters." And that is how she approached each of her relationships with Stephanie, Leslie, and Brenda. She loved and cared for them as her own. Without being intrusive or overbearing, she was just present. And in return, she got their love and care, particularly in the last few years. It's rare, when I meet with a family, that the spouses have as much or more to say than the children of the beloved who passed away. But that was the case for Blanche. These three women were her daughters, and she was proud to give them the title. Of course, there was no title that gave Blanche more pride than that of grandmother and great-grandmother. Tina and Tony and your kids Zach and Olivia, Carrie and Travis and your kids Mallory, Jackson, and Brooklyn, Hal and Jill and your kids Emmy and Elena, and Corey and Alicia. You all were the light of your grandmother's and great-grandmother's life. One could just tell by the thousands of pictures that lined the walls and surfaces of her apartment. Your faces literally filled her world. But I bet you know this. You know this by how she would show up to every show, graduation, or celebration, no matter how small. You know this by the way she would gather everyone for family trips, and more regularly for her annual dinner around Christmas time, when the whole family would surround the table, celebrating her birthday and be together. These moments with you, these moments with family, were her greatest joy. As we sit around a different table in a few nights, we will not only celebrate family and togetherness, but also memory. We will remember our people's story. We will remember as if we ourselves were freed from Egypt. So too now with Blanche's memory. All gathered here, especially this beautiful family, are now tasked with the important responsibility of memory. Memory of sharing stories, absolutely, but more so, memory in action and in deed. May you and Blanche's memory bring friends together for a game and some laughter. May you and Blanche's memory travel the world and experience new things. May you and Blanche's memory make others feel at home, in your family. May you and Blanche's memory gather the people you love most in the world, tell them what they mean to you, and love them unconditionally. This is the legacy Blanche Speisman created, a legacy which you all now hold, a legacy of love, loyalty, and family. Zikrona livracha, may her memory be a blessing. And we say together, Amen. We'll now hear from those who knew and loved Blanche most. We'll start with one of her sons, Dennis.
You know, give me the other glasses just in case.
Each day, every day, I would get a call. Hi, what's doing? What's new? And I would answer, not much since I spoke to you 2 hours ago, or an hour ago, or 10 minutes ago. Often Mom would call and then ask rhetorically, did I just talk to you? I'm going to miss those calls. While sometimes exasperating, I will truly miss those calls. Our talks were simple. We would talk about my day, her day. Did she go downstairs for dinner? How she felt? If she needed anything in her apartment? We would talk about our next visit with her in her apartment. Leslie and I lived 45 minutes away, her being in Boca, we were in West Palm. And we would talk about the kids. She was always excited to talk about her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Each phone call was essentially the same, but each was a loving connection that kept her close to Ian, Rabbi, and me. A day never went by without all of us talking with Mom. Sometimes she even did FaceTime calls, though some were planned and some were not. At least on the planned calls, we were able to warn her and make sure that she was ready for them. The phone was also a lifelong connection to her friends, whether speaking to a childhood friend like Charlotte, friends from Maryland like Greta and Adie, friends from Palmyra like Doris and Grace, or the family of friends she had at the Hyatt Classic like Buddy, Claire, Henny, and so many more. She kept in touch with all. Her loyalty as a friend was returned tenfold by them. The phone also kept her connected to Alma and Joe, especially these past 2 years. She truly loved and admired her brother and was so proud of the man he is and his accomplishments. It meant so much to her that Uncle Joe and I have a close relationship, and that we all share a wonderful bond with Alma and Joe. Her friends were so important to her because she was widowed so early in life. She and Dad raised their family together, but at just the time they became empty nesters and could reap the joys of independence, Dad had a stroke and passed away 3 years later. Mom was a widow at the age of 58, but with the support of her family and all those wonderful friends and Grandpa, she picked herself up and began a new life full of new adventures. She traveled near and far and around the world with those wonderful friends and only stopped when she was no longer able to make those trips safely. I think one of the reasons Mom was so loved was that she was not a person who complained or demanded anything. She figured it out for herself if something was not right. She could have been the poster child for go with the flow. Whatever happened to come her way, whether it was a minor inconvenience or something major, she would go with the flow. I was always amazed that for somebody who couldn't decide what to order when we went out to dinner, when it came to major life decisions, she made her decisions on her own and she acted on them rapidly. That was the other thing. Once she decided she wanted something or wanted to do something, it had to be done yesterday. She would not be happy with today's supply chain issues. One of the best decisions she made for herself was when she decided that she did not want to continue living in Palm Air. Instead, she wanted to move to independent living where she would feel safe and have a home where she would be surrounded by friends and activities. After moving to the Hyatt Classic residence in Boca Raton, she made sure to be a part of everything that was offered. On site, she would take exercise classes, play mahjong, play canasta, have dinner with friends, attend lectures, go to the weekly entertainment shows. Off-site, she'd be the first person in line to sign up for the trips to the museums or to the movies, going out to lunch or dinner at many different restaurants. She even took several trips to different destinations when they were offered. I believe that her decision to move there extended her life and gave her many additional happy years. She found friends who became her extended family as they all looked out for one another and would check in with each other several times a day. The special bonds between Mom and her daughter-in-law was something quite remarkable. Each had their own special relationship. Stephanie cared for Mom's health and well-being like a fierce mother bear. She would talk to the doctors, manage her medications, and arrange for and manage Mom's caregivers. Mom never needed a personal shopper or a makeup artist. She had Leslie. Whatever special event came along, Leslie would shop with her for just the right outfit, shoes, and accessories. She would then apply her makeup when the event took place so that Mom would look and feel her best. When Mom was robbed and most of her jewelry was stolen, Leslie found pieces in her safe at home. She took Mom to the jeweler to restyle them so she would continue to have something meaningful to wear. When Mom moved into the Hyatt Classic, they shopped together for furnishings and then decorated the apartment so it was beautiful, comfortable, and in Mom's words, happy. The first question she would ask Leslie when we would visit was, "How do I look?" Brenda's bond with Mom came from having boys, but I'll let Brenda tell you that herself. She was a grandmother who fiercely loved each and every grandchild. Tina and Carrie were the girls she never had, and Hal and Corey were the boys who brought back the memories of her own boys. But again, I'll let them speak for themselves. Lastly, though, the best smiles came with the birth of each of her 7 great-grandchildren. Zachary, Olivia, Mallory, Jackson, Brooklyn, Emmy, and Eliana. She loved talking to them on the phone or watching the numerous videos we would send. Nothing made her happier than when Zachary and Olivia would come to light the Hanukkah candles at her building. She loved when Carrie and family came to Florida during the winter break and she could spend precious time with Mallory, Jackson, and Brooklyn, watching them play in the pool or just having dinner together. Then just a few weeks ago, she was finally able to meet Elena, her youngest great-grandchild, and see Emmy after 2 long years. What a life. What a blessed life. What a full life. She didn't let life pass her by no matter what the circumstance or obstacle. It is her life's lesson to us. To quote the great sage, Mom, when the weather is good, you got to take advantage of it. Whether it was the weather or life, she took advantage of every moment and lived life without regrets. So should we all.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. We'll hear now from one of her daughters-in-law, Brenda.
Blanche and I had quite a few things in common. Not only the love of her son, but we both raised boys, therefore making us mother-in-laws to girls. Our first 2 grandchildren are also girls, and our love of knitting. My mother-in-law raised 3 wonderful boys, Ian, Dennis, and Rabbi. The stories of their childhood are full of fun, antics, and laughter. To this day, they remain close brothers, and they were devoted sons to their mother. Rabbi would make sure to call and talk to Blanche each and every day. It could be a 10-minute conversation, always with the mention of the weather, how cold it was up here, and how warm it was in Florida. Or just a simple 1-minute just checking in call. In the past couple of years, Rabbi took any means of transportation to get down to Florida to see her during the pandemic. We drove, we auto-trained, we flew with 6 other people on the airplane, all for that 20-minute time slot visit under a canopy outside her building. Stephanie, Leslie, and I would often compliment her on the great job she did raising the men we married. I can only hope that I have raised my boys well. As a mother-in-law to daughters, she taught me by example. She was never imposing nor demanding. She never told us how to raise our children, and was always appreciative. She didn't ask for much, but she didn't ask for much from her daughter-in-laws, but oftentimes she would let us do various tasks. Jill and Alicia take note. Through the past 12 years, when Robbie and I would go to Florida, Robbie would call Blanche when we'd get into town. Her first question would be, when will I see you? We would set our day and time to meet. Robbie would then call when we would leave our apartment to say we were on our way. Without fail, before we could exit 95 in Boca, the phone would ring in the car and she would ask, where are you? After our visit, our outing, or our meal, no sooner would we get back to our apartment, she would call with a thank you and how good it was to see us. She always looked forward to seeing her family and put her time and talents towards showing her love. She was an avid knitter and a talented needlepointer. She has made very large, time-consuming needlepoint pieces, the most notable a 3-panel screen that is truly a work of art. She would knit each of us blankets, and when we changed our color decor, she willingly and lovingly would knit us new ones. When Hal and Corey were born, she knitted them their homecoming outfits. She made numerous items, sweaters, ponchos, and blankets for Carrie and Tina's dolls. 6 out of 7 of her great-grandchildren received beautiful knitted blankets and sweaters. Just yesterday, Ian, through FaceTime, showed me Elena's blanket that she had started. I hope I can finish it nearly as well as she would. Up until COVID, she would meet with her knitting group in the building and they would make blankets for donations. She was a talented, thoughtful, and loving mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, and she will be missed.
Okay. We'll hear now from Carrie, her grandkids. Okay. The goal is not to live forever. The goal is to create something special that will. And this is exactly what Grandma Blanche did. She created an incredible legacy in her 96 years on this earth that will carry on through her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrie, and I'm representing the grandchildren and great-grandchildren today. Tina, Hal, Corey, and I went back and forth yesterday discussing our most favorite grandma memories. But the truth is that the memories are endless, and the funny stories just kept coming. One would lead to another, and another, and another. We could go back and forth for days and barely scratch the surface of her amazing 96 years. Tina was the firstborn grandchild, and after 3 boys, Grandma was surely excited about having a little princess to fuss over. I was born next, and then Hal, and then Corey came along. She was blessed with 4 grandchildren who she doted over constantly. She loved to show us off to all of her friends, parading us up and down the hallways at both her apartments in Chevy Chase in Florida. She would stop at all of her friends' places saying, "Look who came to see Grandma! Look how big they got!" She was so incredibly proud of each and every one of us and told us that all the time. Grandma used to love to have girly sleepovers with Tina and I. She would whisk us around in her Cadillac on fun adventures. She had this large Blanche keychain that would dangle from the ignition that I will never forget. You couldn't miss it. In her purse, she always had a Ziploc filled with hard candies that we often raided too. Her nails were always immaculate and on point, and her hair done. These were just the grandma things that we will never forget. She even shared her love of coffee with us, always making a tiny cup of joe for us when we came for overnight stays. The boys used to love swimming in her pool in Florida and playing shuffleboard on the deck. They have so many memories of rollerblading around the Palm Air complex thinking they were hot stuff. And as far as Grandma was concerned, they were. Grandma taught them the important life hack about cooking.
You know, that oven is not necessarily meant for cooking. It's also pantry storage. Why use that big of open space for cooking? How many of you can say that your grandmother was your roommate? I can. Let me explain. Grandma was always super generous in so many ways, and one of those ways was taking us on large family vacations. It truly was a special time together that I will always cherish. We took a few vacations, one to the Atlantis and the Bahamas, and then 2 cruises. Having everyone travel together as a large group was such a wonderful bonding experience for our family. Our last cruise vacation, the roommate situation shifted a bit because our family was expanding. Tina had brought Tony into the picture, which was lovely, but Travis wasn't around yet. So that meant Grandma and I were bunking up for that trip, for that last cruise vacation. But that's okay, we took that cruise by storm and had a blast. Who do you think had top bunk? When Grandma got an iPhone, everything changed. Her demand for videos and pictures was constant. She was always on the hunt for new content, but then would often delete whatever we sent her and be calling later to re-request the content. And oh, she loved FaceTime. Modern technology was a beautiful thing, allowing her to see her grandchildren and great-grandchildren between our visits. You would often get glimpses of her forehead, her ear, her chin, but that was part of the fun. More importantly, though, she was able to stay connected to us, especially during COVID. She got pretty good at it, though, even locking down a pretty good pinky swipe. You know, with the nails always done, the pinky swipe. As we each got older and went off to college, got married, and started to have our own families, the love and support and connections with Grandma Blanche just grew and got stronger. We would always get our check-in phone calls. What's doing? How's your weather? And the famous, let me ask you a question. She never missed a birthday, anniversary, or special occasion. She was truly incredible and sharp as a tack. I always wondered how she kept it all straight with such a large family. I would often call her on my way home from work to check in and see how she was doing, and loved hearing the joy in her voice when she picked up. You had to get your news in quickly, though, because if that other line beeped, and it always did because she had so many friends and family calling, she would certainly move on to the next phone call. And then she'd catch up with you later. So many calls, so little time. In all seriousness, though, I'm going to desperately miss those phone calls to her on my rides home. Her asking about the kids, checking in on Travis and how his job is going, asking me about work and life in Texas. Her calling me to track my parents down because they haven't called her back. Her telling me what the weather is in Dallas. And undoubtedly, she would end every single phone call to all of us with, you know what I wished for you? The truth is, Grandma, we do know what you wish for us, and we hope we can carry on your legacy and make you proud.
With these words in our minds and our hearts and these memories floating through our air, we'll witness as Blanche is lowered to her final resting place, and then we'll join together in our memorial prayers. We'll rise for our memorial prayers, Amalei Rachamim, and Mourner's Kaddish. We'll wait till they're done. El Malei Rachamim, Shochin Bamromim, Tamsei Menucha Nechona, Taka Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utorim, Kezohar Harakia, Mazhirim, Et Nishmat, Shoshana, Bat Asher V'Zipporah, Shehacha Leolama. Ba'al Be'al Harachamim, Yasirecha Beseter Kenefav Leolamim, Vitzror Bitzror HaChaim, Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava, V'nomar, Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Blanche Speisman, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And we say together, Amen. We'll join now with the Speisman family. I believe we have some handouts with Kaddish on them. I think there's some grandkids over here. Do you have already? Okay. Okay, page 2. And we'll join together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbi, ve'alma divrach firutei ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbi mivarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudasha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, and we say together, Amen. You may be seated. At this time, before we conclude our service, we perform a mitzvah, a commandment that is seen as one of the greatest mitzvahs we can ever do because it can never be repaid. And that is that we help Blanche be buried in her final resting place. And so there's lots of different traditions about this, but the main idea here is that mourning is hard, it's heavy lifting, and that she takes a little bit of us with her to the grave, and also that we know the hard work that goes into remembering her, giving her memory life, and making sure that this beautiful family comes back to life after mourning her. And so we'll begin with our immediate mourners, with her sons. And there's some over here. We can also do here. There's different traditions. You can do 3 shovelfuls. You can do the back of the shovel. You can do 1, whatever you'd like. Once the family has gone, then everyone else is welcome to do this as well. No, Mom, he doesn't want to.
I'm telling you, and I'm 83. And everything so well.
At this time, anyone else who'd like to come forward to do some shovelfuls, you're welcome to. And once everyone is done, we will gather one more time before we head out. Take the shovel over here.
Yeah.
Lay down next to the desk. The family wanted me to mention that they feel unbelievably supported by everybody who was able to be here today because of health concerns. Both lunch and Shiva are going to be held privately with the family later today, but they are just so grateful that you all have been here to remember Blanche and to be with them. We say Hamakom Yenachem Etzchem B'toch She'ar Avalei Tzion V'Yerushalayim, that we go from this place, this low place, that we go forth in peace to life. That our responsibility now is to care for this family, for these mourners, to support them not just today, but tomorrow and a month from now and a year from now, to keep calling and asking about the weather and asking about their lives, and making sure that they feel supported again and again as they navigate this new life without Blanche. That concludes our memorial service.
She'll see. She'll come over. She's so family. She'll come. No, it's thank you.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochin Bamromim, Kamsei Menucha Nechona, Taka Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utorim, Kezohar Harakia, Mazhirim, Et Nishmat, Shoshana, Bat Asher V'Zipporah, Shehacha Leolama. Ba'al be'al harachamim, yasirecha beseter kenefav leolamim, v'yitzror b'yitzror hachayim, et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar, Amen.